Imagine a world where the Vikings, those fierce Norse warriors, didn't just raid and pillage across Europe, but actually settled down in North America, creating thriving communities long before Columbus ever set sail. It's a captivating thought, isn't it? The truth is, they did reach North America around the year 1000 AD, led by none other than Leif Erikson, the son of Erik the Red. They called this new land Vinland, and they established a settlement at a site we now know as Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. You can almost envision them there, surrounded by lush vegetation, timber, and the promise of new beginnings. But here's the twist. Despite their adventurous spirit and pioneering efforts, the Vikings never established a lasting colony. So, what happened? First off, let's talk about the people already living there. The Vikings encountered indigenous populations they referred to as Skrælings. Now, these encounters were not the peaceful exchanges of goods and ideas we might hope for. Instead, they were often marked by hostility and conflict. Imagine a group of Norsemen, armed and ready for battle, facing off against indigenous communities defending their land. These skirmishes made it clear that establishing a permanent presence would be fraught with danger. Who wants to settle somewhere when every day could mean a fight for survival? Then there's the distance. Vinland was far from the Viking homelands of Greenland and Iceland. Picture the challenges of maintaining a supply line across the treacherous North Atlantic. It's no small feat. The further they ventured, the harder it became to send for reinforcements, supplies, or even just familiar faces. They were isolated, cut off from the resources and support they needed to thrive. And let's not forget about the manpower. The Vikings were already stretched thin, managing their existing settlements. Committing to a new colony was a tall order. Now, we can't ignore the climate. Newfoundland's environment posed its own set of challenges. The Vikings were accustomed to certain agricultural practices that simply didn't translate well to this new land. The soil, the weather, the growing season, everything was different. And as if that wasn't enough, the climate began to cool in the years following their arrival, ushering in what we now call the Little Ice Age. Just imagine trying to farm in a place that's getting colder and less hospitable. It's enough to make anyone reconsider their plans for a permanent settlement. Internal conflicts also played a role. The Norse already had established communities in Greenland and Iceland that demanded their attention. They weren't just a unified group of adventurers. They had their own politics, rivalries, and priorities. The lure of Vinland, while enticing, had to compete with the realities of their existing lives. And let's face it, when you're managing your own home, the idea of starting over in a far-off land can seem like an overwhelming gamble. Finally, the economic incentive, or lack thereof, was a significant factor. Vinland had its resources, sure, but they didn't quite stack up against the wealth and opportunities available closer to home. The risks of maintaining a colony, coupled with the challenges they faced, likely overshadowed any potential benefits. It's a classic case of weighing the pros and cons, and for the Vikings, the scales tipped against them. So, while the Vikings were indeed the first known Europeans to explore parts of North America, their attempts at colonization were thwarted by a mix of hostile encounters, logistical nightmares, environmental hurdles, internal strife, and economic realities. It's a fascinating chapter in history that reminds us that exploration is not just about discovery. It's also about survival, adaptation, and the choices we make in the face of uncertainty.